So I've been a vinyl fan since 2015, and in the past year, I've actually expanded my collection into the realm of 78s. You know, Shellac'd 78s and the like. So I'm calling this A Vinyl Fan Gets Shellac'd, my 78 RPM journey thus far. So we're going to start by showing off the first handful of 78s that I got locally at pretty much my favorite local record store. So the first handful that I got locally were pretty much mostly blind buys to me at the time. We of course have the first ever rendition of Frosty the Snowman ever recorded and released in 1950 by Gene Autry, or Autry, or however you say his name. So not only was he a prominent country artist back in like the 40s and whatnot, but a prominent Christmas artist as well, being the first to record popular songs like Frosty the Snowman, Rudolph the Red-Nosed Reindeer, and also Up on the Housetop. And I also think a lot of his B-side singles, such as When Santa Claus Gets Your Letter, are quite underrated. So, we'll just carefully do that so you can see the center label. It's actually kind of cool. This is one of my best sounding and least noisy 78s actually, despite looking a little scratchy. We also have 1949, Benny Goodman's rendition of Oobla Dee, often referred to as In the Land of Oobla Dee. And then the other side is an instrumental called Bedlam. Here is Rollin' Pete, which is a pretty popular boogie woogie song at the time. And the other side is a song called Boogie Woogie. And they do sound pretty similar, if I'm being honest, musically. We then move on to Jingle Bells, another Christmas song. Initially when I heard this, I thought this was one of the funniest renditions of Jingle Bells I'd ever heard, mostly due to having the chorus in a bunch of different languages, such as Pig Latin. But it's actually unironically good. Judging by the label, this looks to be roughly a 40s, maybe late 30s, early 40s reissue. But this was originally recorded in 1931. And the B-side is an instrumental called I'll Think of You by Joe Guman, or however you say his name, and his orchestra. Here we have Bing Crosby, one of the absolute legends of the day. And I also have a limited edition 45 that was a Black Friday release for 2022 Record Store Day. It was him and David Bowie did a rendition of Little Drummer Boy and Peace on Earth, and the B-side of that release is In This Wonderful White World of Winter. But I'm getting off topic here. Back to 78s. Bing Crosby's rendition of You Are My Sunshine, which honestly I didn't even know was a sad song, or like was supposed to be traditionally a sad song. Basically about a man's wife leaving him and how sad he is over it. You know, it's basically just, sunshine is what he calls his wife or something along those lines. This is released in 1941. On the B-side is my personal favorite rendition of Riding Down the Canyon. The Gene Autry one is nice, but I prefer this one hands down. I do own that also, but you know. Then of course we come to the 78 album that I bought just sort of for the novelty factor. It's like, ooh, a Disney album on 78s. Now, I had never heard of them doing Johnny Appleseed rendition or Melody Time. You can actually watch that on Disney Plus if you want to. It's a really good musical film from 1948, consisting of short films, including this one. What's also interesting about this release of Johnny Appleseed is they do change up some of the lyrics and add some bits, such as like a bit where Johnny has a confrontation with some of the Indians, but he's able to calm them down using nothing but his Bible. So here you go, 6 sides. One thing that I always find obnoxious about a lot of like box sets and albums, that type of thing from this time period, you have a lot of these which don't have, they're not like back to back. So you have like, 1 and 6, then you have 5 and 2, and then 3 and 4. I'm guessing it was designed that way, and I do have a vinyl box set that's like from the 60s that's like that too. I'm guessing it was done with record changers in mind, which would make a lot of sense if you think about it, because, you know, in this time period, late 40s, into the 50s, whatever, record changers were exceedingly popular, especially ones that played at all 3 speeds, and some probably had 16 RPM too. So apparently my copy, the previous owner was some grandmother that had most likely given this to her grandchildren as a Christmas present, hence the little handwritten note here. So somebody that owned this before me got this for Christmas in 1948. I got this on Record Store Day in 2022, so, you know. And then the back cover, you might want to see. Oh yeah, basically just advertising. Excuse me. Yeah. Honestly, I think $8 for a little Disney album on 78s in reasonably good condition is a good price, if I'm being honest. I mean, for what it is. Alrighty then, continuing on to some more of my collection. I went really 78 crazy in the past month, so I bought a whole lot. Well, literally, because I bought a lot containing 27, and then another lot containing 7, and then other stuff I've been buying since then. Pay no attention to the the box sets and 45s over here. This is something different, actually, but it is still technically a 78, so I will mention it. This is a contemporary 2019 recorded, electrically recorded, of course, stereo microgroove vinyl record. That runs at 78 RPM. Limited edition by Rivermont Records by the Chicago Cellar Boys. This is basically a 78 RPM EP in stereo that you play on your modern equipment as they specify here. And they have, the hype and all that on what very faithfully recreates the old style 78 sleeves. So yeah. We then move on. Okay, that seems a little tight. We then move on to the bunch of records I bought. about a month ago. Okay, so we have, to start with, one of my absolute favorites and one of the oldest I own, Moonlight and Roses by Waring's Pennsylvanians, released in 1926, VE meaning Victor Electric. This was the year that most companies had stopped recording acoustically, by the traditional, at least up to that point, recording straight into, excuse me, okay, that's full now. Recording straight into a horn, which would then vibrate the needle that would record onto the master disc. So here's Moonlight and Roses, which is a foxtrot, and one of my absolute favorites that I own. And the B-side is a waltz called Let Me Call You Sweetheart. Another personal favorite of mine from 1929, this being Sunny Side Up from the film of the same name. Apparently there were a couple different artists who did this song. Electrical recording, of course. And then the B-side is Love. This one is maybe not in the absolute best condition, as it has a little bit of that blasting sort of sound and it's kind of noisy. But it's fun music nonetheless. We then move on to another personal favorite of mine that I really enjoy. Again, from a movie I've never heard of. The Donkey Serenade by Alan Jones. Or sung by Alan Jones, anyway. Oh, Nat Shellac'd. Whatever that name is. I know that conductor. Nice. So yeah, Donkey Serenade. Shellac'd, I don't know. Then the B-side is Gianna Mia. Never heard of The Firefly, to be honest, as I haven't really watched too many movies older than, I don't know, 50s or 60s, if I'm being honest. I did, of course, forget to mention Donkey Serenade is from 1938, or thereabouts. Here we have, going way out of order, Cry of the Dying Duck in a Thunderstorm by Cactus Pryor, released in 1950. And the B-side is Double Trouble. This, the seller did not advertise this as being broken, but when I got it, it ended up being cracked down the middle. Still perfectly playable, but just, it would click like every rotation. Now, I'm just doing this in the order I have them in right now, but of course, here is the famous Zippity Doo-Dah. 1946 or 47, not entirely sure when this particular release came out. My understanding is this is at least one of the original renditions. Maybe it is the original, I don't know. And of course, B-side, Sooner or Later, from Song of the South. Both of these are from Song of the South, but Which, I'd love to see that movie at some point, but unfortunately it hasn't been on home video or streaming services due to, supposed racial stereotyping. Which could be argued for Johnny Appleseed's depiction of Indians in that scene too, or Native Americans, or whatever you want to call them. You get the idea. Moving on to more 40s records. The Clouds Rain Trouble Down by Jack Guthrie and his Oklahomans. I'm amazed I can read that through the sleeve and my screen. Anyway, B-side is Okie Boogie. This is like a cute little country tune, I guess. Not one of my absolute favorites that I played a fair few times, but I enjoy it. This one I find absolutely hilarious. This is Bloop Bleep by Danny Kaye. Basically a song about a constantly dripping sink, and he can't sleep as a result. And the other side is I Got a Song. This other one here is Chopin's Polonaise, I think it's called, by Carmen Caballero and his orchestra. Also on the Decca label, I believe, and also from the 40s. Yep, that's right. B-side is En Loro, I think it's called. This one is a really blasty sort of recording or condition, or I don't know. You can see it's a little scratched too. This here is another one of my absolute favorites that I've played a fair few times. At the very least a handful. This is Chick Bullock's rendition of Ace in the Hole, released in 1936. And apparently I mistakenly thought his name was Chuck Bullock because the seller listed his name that way. And I saw another video of this record and I still thought it was Chuck, and I thought they misspelled it as Chick. But no, the guy's name was Chick Bullock, which is actually not that weird. Chick has been a male name, at least on occasion. I mean, think Chick Hicks from Cars, for crying out loud. B-side is My Gal Sal. One issue this particular copy has on Ace in the Hole, when it gets toward the end, it does have a broken record effect. However, what's curious about that is that it's only an issue on the turntable with more than 2 grams of tracking force. But then if I play it on my gramophone, which has way heavier tracking force, ounces, as opposed to grams, then it's fine. Of course, whenever it doesn't repeat, you'll still hear the pop, but it's fine. I've tried a technique I used once before on my vintage copy of Kick-X's Rock the World, where it wasn't broken per se, but it would skip on a particular guitar solo. But yeah, anyway. Next we have Cuddle Up a Little Closer, going back to the 40s, by the Pied Pipers with Paul Weston and his orchestra. And the other side is the Trolley Song. We're going to speed through the vast majority of these because I don't have too much to say on most of them. But this is How Blue the Night by Dick Hames. And the other side is How Many Times Do I Have to Tell You? Another one of my absolute favorites, Accentuate the Positive by Johnny Mercer, which I believe is the original version of this song, released in 1944. And then on the other side is There's a Fellow Waiting in Poughkeepsie. Bing Crosby has also done a rendition of these two songs, but I definitely prefer this one personally. But yeah, he and the Andrews Sisters did a rendition as well. So June Hutton sings this song, whereas Johnny Mercer sings this. It is kind of funny also how, the song, even though accentuate is a real word, I love how they basically phoneticized it with accentuate the positive. Here we have Bumble Boogie, another song that was on Disney's Melody Time, although not by this particular artist. I think that was a Waring's Pennsylvanian's rendition. But anyway, this is Bumble Boogie, which is basically a unique take on Flight of the Bumblebee. This is another one I really enjoy. The other side is Sepulveda. I was thinking about saving all these Gene Autry records for later, since I bought them in a separate lot. Begrudgingly, they were not in sleeves when they were shipped, and then of course this resulted in some of them having, adhesive junk on them. But anyway, let's just get these out of the way real fast since there's only 7 of them. Cowboy Blues. And the other side is Galvestian Gal, excuse me. And then we have, sorry about that, Dixie Cannonball and Pretty Mary. This one, oh my gosh, there's something on the record on the Pretty Mary side toward the end, and it reminded me of what happened with my 30th anniversary RSD exclusive release of the Transformers the Movies soundtrack. And that was a new record. I don't know what happened during this record's lifetime, but that stuff toward the end, it can cause an issue with certain tracking forces, but if you set it just right, it plays fine. It just sort of clicks every rotation when you get there. So then we have Red River Valley and Home on the Range. That's a classic song that everybody knows right there. It even says traditional. And of course, being a country artist, it seems only fitting that he do a very country song. Not sure what happened to the recording there. I apologize. Anyway, let's continue. Back in the Saddle again. And the other side is Tumbling Tumbleweeds. Sorry, I'm not getting into which is A and which is B. Doesn't matter too much anyway. At least in my opinion. Here we go. The Gene Autry rendition of Riding Down the Canyon, which I don't like as much as the Bing Crosby version, as I mentioned before. It's fine. I just prefer Bing Crosby's rendition. And of course, Twilight on the Trail. I almost wanted to say rail for a second there, which was not correct. We have... Oh yes, I love this one. Here Comes Santa Claus. And An Old-Fashioned Tree, which I consider to be a very underrated B-side single. Obviously with no radio airplay whatsoever. And I believe the last of the Gene Autry pack I bought, Mexicali Rose and South of the Border. We then move on to what is my new personal favorite rendition of Jingle Bells aside from Joe Guman. A parody called Yingle Bells by Harry Stewart, basically portraying the Swedish stereotype named Yogi Jorgensen. This is my absolute favorite. I mean, Weird Al Yankovic, Eat Your Heart Out, much as I'm a Weird Al fan. This guy was doing that type of thing, and others too. Novelty isn't a new genre by any means. But he was doing that type of thing decades before Weird Al. Much as I am a huge Weird Al fan and grew up with Weird Al, I like Yogi Jorgensen. He's a funny character. Other side is I Just Go Nuts at Christmas. Sorry, just in a mood there. More Gene Autry. This is not part of the pack. I actually bought it more recently. Rudolph, of course. Obviously an A-side. And Not my absolute favorite B-side Christmas song by him, but I consider it to be underrated nonetheless. And that is If It Doesn't Snow on Christmas, which basically deals with how the heck Santa's supposed to get around the world if, well, it doesn't snow on Christmas Eve, whatever the heck. We then move on to For Whom the Bell Tolls. Not the Metallica song. This predates that by decades. This is an instrumental, if I recall. That's the B-side, though. This, oh my, that's hard to read. Saber Dance. Victor Young and his something. Hard to read. Freaking can't read that. Concert orchestra. Same on both sides, anyway. We next have another Purple Capital label, which I had never seen before until I got the Jingle Bells record and this. All Dressed Up with a Broken Heart by Peggy Wee, with Dave Barber and his orchestra. And Manana, it's Spanish for tomorrow. How on earth could I mess that up? Anyway, Manana is soon enough for me. This is a fun little Brazilian dance. But, you know. Moving on. More Decca. Early 40s, probably. No, I think this is from the late 40s. Pistol Packin' Mama. Which is a kind of a funny song. A guy who gets in trouble with, by Freddie Schnickel Fritz Fischer and his orchestra. Other side is Wilberforce, Get Off That Horse. That one is a pretty funny song about a guy who they want to get off his horse and deliver food to them, basically. Next up, we have another Bing Crosby song. Tooraloo, Raloo Roll. That's an Irish lullaby. This particular copy I have has an issue. I don't know if it's an issue per se, but the recording on this side is just super quiet, and fairly noisy as well. There's parts that even sound like staticky surface noise. The other side is I'll Remember April, which is totally fine and has good volume. Next up, we have... Oh, I just looked at that already. Sorry. Next up is not that. There we go. That's what I thought this was. We have the first 78 that I had ever bought online personally back in June. I went to Belize for a week at the end of May and then came back to have gotten this wonderful record in the mail. We have Chapel in the Valley by the legendary Glenn Miller and his orchestra. Vocals by Ray Ibero, I don't know. And the other side is A Little Old Church in England. This is one of my absolute favorites that I own. And then another Glenn Miller song here. Record, whatever. This one is really fun and special to me because the seller of the gramophone I bought, the HMV 102, was kind enough to include this with it, as well as a bunch of needles, even though I had already bought 100 pack of soft tone steel needles. So on the other side is Beautiful Ohio. Next up we have... Oh, this one is kind of fun. My How the Time Goes by Elliot Lawrence and his orchestra. And the other side is Baby Boogie which is not yet another rendition of. It's not Bumble Boogie. It's not anything like that. But it is a fun song. Next up we have Cougats Nougats. Xavier Cugat and his orchestra. Other side is the Mexican Shuffle, which, fun fact, is the Mexican hat dance and whatever. But yeah, it's a fun rendition of that song. And the fidelity and condition of this is remarkable too. Here's Doris Day, the actress slash singer. Papa, won't you dance with me? The other side is Say Something Nice About Me. Next up we have a fun little organ instrumental. Lily Marlene on one side, and Oh What It Seemed to Be on the other side. These are both instrumentals played on what kind of sounds like a rock organ. Next up we have So They Tell Me by Charlie Spivak and his orchestra. Other side is Linda. And then I also forgot to mention the artist for this was Herb Kern at the Hammond. Tom Wade. Okay, you can get a good look at that. So 1 and 2 artists depending. Gotcha. Oh, Hammond organ. Got it. Makes sense. Like the B3, for example. Here we have Paul Withner and his orchestra again, with Margaret Whiting. It Might As Well Be Spring. And the other side, How Deep Is the Ocean. This is another one that sounds pretty good and is in pretty good condition. Next up we have, well, I'll give you the A side first, I guess. Andrews Sisters, Money is the Root of All Evil on the A side. It's a cute little song. And we have Johnny Fedora on the B side. Another little torn paper sleeve, so it's a good thing I have those special sleeves. The Day After Forever by Andy Russell. With Al Sack and his orchestra. And the other side is Amor. From 2 different movies, fascinatingly enough. Here we have The Old Master Painter by Dick Haymes with 4 hits and a miss, and Sonny Burka and his orchestra. And the other side is Why Was I Born? I believe that's the last of the big pack that I bought, or the packs I got. Here's some more Glenn Miller. It is Album of Outstanding Arrangements, his first album, released in the mid-40s. Mine is incomplete, however, as it only has the first couple sides, or the middle sides. Doesn't have 1 and 2 or 7 and 8, just has everything in between. On the Victor label, of course. But you know, this is what I think it is. Oh yeah, okay. And some more stuff that I bought recently is the ever fabulous Ambrose. By the way, if you ever check out this eBay seller, His name is We Collect Too Much. Highly recommend them. They sell great 78s in great condition. And so this is Tina on the A side from 1934, with of course the legendary vocal chorus. I believe Sam Brown sung it. It sounds like him. And the B side is Then I'll Be Tired of You. So then we have not a 78, but a rather interesting little thing I got by accident, an Edison Diamond disc. The Lost Chord on one side, Arthur Sullivan, I cannot read this, Contralto with orchestra, Caroline, what? Golly gee. Something like that. Other side is The Rosary. Probably a different artist. Yeah, it is. Ethelbert Nevin? I don't know what that is. Different singer, though. To get the idea. This is a fun one. This is 1936 Tornado. Cute little country tune by Elton Britt. And then this is not the Rain on the Roof that I was expecting, but it is a cute little song called Rain on the Roof. I'm used to the 1932 song of the same name. And I was also not familiar with the Lovin' Spoonful song up until very recently, from 1966. This is Johnson Red. Oh, hey, this is the other Glenn Miller record. This was included by the seller of the album with that, even though it wasn't technically on there originally. Johnson Rag and Chattanooga Choo Choo. Some classics of his. A reissue, of course, from the 40s. This was the other record that was included with my, or what I actually intended to buy. That was included with this, and the Edison Diamond disc were used to support it. This is on Mobile Bay by Albert Campbell and Henry Burr on this side, and the other side is Ada Jones singing We've Kept the Golden Rule. This is on the proprietary United label with the proprietary size spindle hole, which is actually smaller than North American 45s, which didn't exist until decades later. I've done stuff about this already, which you might see. But yeah. This is what I had really bought that the Edison Diamond disc and United record were supporting. Kiss Me Goodnight by Lou Gold and his orchestra with a vocal by Chick Bullock, which I didn't realize initially. It is a cute little waltz from 1932, presumably. Other side, Rain on the Roof. The Rain on the Roof I was expecting, although not a rendition that seems particularly popular or that I've seen floating around the internet and whatnot. So yeah, that's a nice one on the Oriole label. And now we have another rendition of Rain on the Roof that I absolutely love, and is a more famous one, by Savoy Hotel Orpheans, with the A side being another fairly famous 1932 song, Alviderson, My Dear. And I believe that's it. That's all the 78s I have. Another thing I would like to mention about the Rivermont record from 2019 is this isn't just music that happens to be on a new 78. No. This is basically 20th century foxtrots and the like reimagined and for the 21st century and recorded in the 21st century. But yeah, that's good stuff. Anyway, now you may be wondering, what do I play my 78s on? Besides the HMV 102. So we have the HMV 102 over here, which I would like to briefly show off. Not playing, of course, because we don't have time for that. And it's not a good time right now. But, you know. So there you go. I did actually have to resolder the needle bar on the diaphragm of the sound box because I had a rattling issue when I got it. But otherwise, this does work very well. These are the soft tone needles I bought. Then, of course, my main rig that I use for everything, including 78s, is my trusty Technics SL1210GR that I've also had since April with Nagaoka MP110 with MP78 stylus for 78s and the standard, LP over here. And I also use the, for vinyl, I also like to use the Ortophone 2M Black LVB 250. And of course, here are the Sellers needles for the HMV 102. And I have that other bag down there somewhere. That's right. This is a really great seller that makes new needles for acoustic machines. Anyway, that is all for now. Oh, and also I would like to give a shout out to YouTube channel The Vinyl Attack, who also have an excellent cork mat made for them. Thanks. Bye. I apologize, but I also forgot to mention the other parts of my signal chain are the RecoCut Mark II preamp with simple EQ for RIAA and old 78s respectively, and either going into the Shure Magni 2 headphone amp or the Alesis M1 Active 320 USB speakers. I do plan on upgrading some other stuff in the future, but this is mainly what I use. Thanks. Bye.